I'm Bev, and I've been living with myeloma since 2018. I have to preface this by saying that yesterday was a treatment day. I had chemo. That includes dexamethasone. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that. It's a corticosteroid that helps our body process the rest of the chemo, I think, in a short version. It also makes you not sleep for a couple of days. You eat everything that's not nailed down. It increases your heart rate, so your body thinks you're working out at 2 a.m., not in this world. And the inability to shut up. So you've all been warned. And I'm sorry that treatment coincided with this talk. So I've always been a healthy, active individual. Out on my motorcycle, my cycle, I walk, I worked out with a personal trainer 3 times a week. I was in good shape, I thought. And then in the spring of 2018, I started feeling very fatigued, increased thirst, and I was working at a law firm downtown in an old building. So we're thinking winter's coming, the HVAC, it's an old system, everybody's thirsty, blah, blah, blah. So we went on a Hawaiian cruise, my husband and I. We cruise a lot, or we used to. And that was the only cruise I can remember that I practically slept through. I would get up in the morning, go have something to eat, go to my ukulele lessons, because it's Hawaiian, gotta get into it, come back, have a nap, get up, maybe have lunch, drink a couple of liters of water, go out in the afternoon, maybe shop out the stores on the ship, come back, sleep, maybe eat dinner. And I was drinking 2 to 4 liters of water a day. I don't know if you know how difficult that could be. Most people struggle to get, 1.5, but so my friends thought I was ticked off at them. I wasn't, I was just not well. We came back, and on May 30th, I got up in the morning to get ready for work. I jumped in the shower, and I couldn't stand up long enough to complete the shower. And I thought, something's wrong. Alarm bells are going off. I had been seeing my GP, and we knew I was anemic. She was about to send me for some more specialized blood work when I couldn't stand up long enough to have a shower. So she wrote me a letter, off we toddled to ER. And that was the day that our lives changed forever, basically. The first shocking result after going through a myriad of blood work at the hospital, at the ER, was that I was in renal failure at that moment. I didn't know. I had no clue. Later on, after more extensive research, blood work, the oncologist gave us the second most shocking result. I had multiple myeloma. So Ed and I looked at each other and what the heck is myeloma? Those were the words. Well, we quickly found out, and I was admitted to the hospital for further testing. A lot of people are diagnosed with this disease when they fall and they break a bone, or they break their back, or they break an arm putting their purse in their back seat. And sometimes they do more extensive x-rays and tests, and they find the multiple myeloma. And some people, like me, have high calcium content. Mine was to the point that it was affecting my ability to complete sentences. My boss was completing my sentences. I was thinking, this can't be a good thing. I had renal failure, didn't know it. Anemia, I knew, and I'd had it for months, but my GP didn't click in. She's since asking me all the time about myeloma and what's going on, which is good. So it's often missed. The diagnosis is often missed until you're in stage 2 or 3. After a week in Rocky View, where I was treated to more in-depth testing, including a colonoscopy and a bone marrow biopsy, lucky me, and lucky all of us, because we all go through it. And I was referred immediately to the Tom Baker Cancer Center here in Calgary. At that point, I went to the hematology clinic and was told in my initial assessment that my bone marrow contained 85 to 90% myeloma cells. So I was thinking, no wonder I was tired. There are 3 possible stages to myeloma, and they're ordered by increasing disease severity. And of course, you know, I was level 3, I was stage 3. I went through 4.5 months of Cyborg D chemotherapy, which is cyclophosphamide, Velcade, and dexamethasone. 40 milligrams every treatment. I was vacuuming at 4 in the morning. And after further testing, revealed that I didn't have any genetic biomarkers that would prevent me having an autologous stem cell transplant using my own cells. I was referred to the bone marrow transplant clinic and started to prepare for that process. This included another bone marrow biopsy, subcutaneous injections to stimulate the little stem cells to overproduce and kick each other out of the, marrow into the bloodstream. Having my own cells harvested by an apheresis machine, you all know those, I'm sure. Undergoing high-dose chemotherapy, Melphalan, which was not my favorite part of this whole process. And then getting my stem cells back in November using the apheresis procedure. So before I get into my stem cell transplant, I just want to interject here that I also have Crohn's disease. Now I mention this for a particular reason. One of the really, really bad side effects of Melphalan is what I call the big D. Let me spell that for you. D-I-A-R-R-H-E-A. Okay. So guess what type of Crohn's I have? There's a couple, right? I have the one that causes the big D. So this is where the whole treatment process plays with your head a little. Each patient reacts differently to the Melphalan and to the actual stem cell transplant. We have a great system here in Calgary. Once you receive your cells back, they let you go home and they tell us, return to the unit if you start to feel unwell. But they assign you a room on the unit, right, unit 57, because they know something we don't. At this point, the Melphalan hasn't really kicked in, and most patients feel okay. Some people say, I never had to return to the hospital. It was awesome, I recovered at home. Not very many. I've heard one person since I've come into this world say that. I think I lasted 3 days at home, and then I started to feel really bad, fever, you know. You're just not there. I said, I think it's time to go back to my reserved room at the Unit 57 hotel. So off we go. As the melphalan destroys, hopefully, all the myeloma cells left in your body, your system, and everything else in your GI tract, I'll say that. It can be, the big D can be like something out of this world. It's an alien. You think this can't be happening, but it really is. Combine that with Crohn's disease, and I can truly say that despite some of the best care in the world, our nurses are great, I had 2 of the most miserable weeks of my life on Unit 57. When you get the melphalan, chewing ice was recommended to prevent mouth sores because it's very strong and you get ulcerative. It's not pleasant. But that didn't stop me developing a sore throat. It was so horrific I couldn't swallow water. Nothing. They tried every painkiller. The only thing that worked was fentanyl. And yes, it's the stuff you buy on the streets, but the dose is very minimized. As a result of the sore throat, my vocal cords were scarred, which has affected my voice, as you can probably hear. And this is the funny part. Well, my husband thought it was funny. Did you know that hallucinations can be auditory? Did you? Because I didn't. I had no clue. It was a very disorienting and very realistic experience because one of the side effects for me was auditory hallucinations. Had I realized it at the time, I could have written down the lyrics for songs that, from a concert which I was convinced was happening right outside the hospital, okay? But I didn't realize it was a hallucination. It slowly faded and I didn't make my millions as a singer-songwriter, so it's probably just as well my voice, you know, turned into something less than melodious. After a 2-week stay on Unit 57, I was able to go home and recovery continued. I began to feel much stronger, got some of my stamina back. In March of 2019, I saw my oncologist for a follow-up, and he told me the stem cell transplant was successful. I was in what they call complete recovery, because sometimes they don't like the word remission, but complete recovery. No myeloma cells detectable. I'll take it. I took Revlimid, lenalidomide, as a monthly maintenance drug, so 10 milligrams every day, 3 weeks on, 1 week off. That had its own side effects. I mean, fatigue. You're just not the go-getter you used to be, but you know, you can still get out, do bike rides, almost run Martine down, had a bike event. And I was told when I had the stem cell transplant, if it was successful, you could expect a remission between 2 and 5 years. That's great, I'll take it with the lenalidomide. So every month I had blood work drawn, and every month there was no detectable monoclonal protein spike, OBM spike, we call it. That was a blessing. Then in November of 2023, almost 5 years to the day of my stem cell transplant. Count on me, retired paralegal here, gotta be textbook, right? 2 to 5 years. I got 5 years, awesome. My electrophoresis, my protein electrophoresis showed an M spike of 4. I was in shock. I looked at it, am I reading the right thing? Yeah, I was. So here was a relapse. I knew it was coming. We all know how it works, like all the patients. We know we're gonna relapse, we just don't know when. So I was feeling a bit tired previous to that November blood work, and I, kind of expected something might happen. But when the shoe drops, it's a bit of shock. Right away, talk to the oncologist, we figure out a plan. Would we wait and see if it would increase steadily? Will it level off so that we don't have to do treatments right now? Who knows? In December, January, and February, it rose steadily until it reached 7. And that's when my oncologist said we're gonna start treatment. I began a new treatment regime in March called IKD. That's isatuximab, carfilzomib, and dexamethasone. Let's not forget that one. After the first cycle runs in 4 weeks, I received treatments on days 1, 8, 15, and 22. After that cycle, my M spike dropped to 4. And my free light chain number, which had jumped to 267, was down to 17. So it looks like it's working. The regime changed a bit in cycle 2 because they have to keep us on our feet. On days 1 and 15, I received isatuximab, carfilzomib, and dex. On day 8, I received carfilzomib and dex. And on the week of the day of the 22nd, I had that week off, no treatment. So clear? I had to get a plastic calendar and put it on my wall so that we both could see what the heck am I doing, what am I getting, and what time do I need to be there. Because when you have all 3, your appointment can be 3 hours, an hour and a half for the ISA. The carfilzomib takes half an hour, and then they flush your system, and then, So 2 to 3 hours, depending on how you react. I don't, which is good. I seem to be good in that regard. Blood work after cycle 2 showed an M spike of 2. So I'm from a 7 to a 2. I'll take that. I like it. It'll continue, these drugs, until they stop working like the lenalidomide did. And then we'll move on to the next treatment that's available in Alberta for 2nd line, for 3rd line, I guess now. I'm on the 3rd line. So, our traveling is going to be a bit curtailed. We won't be doing any cruises because we can't fit them in between the days 1, 8, 15, and maybe a 22 off. But I've already warned my husband it's going to happen because it's one of my inspirations for pushing through this disease. My other main inspiration is my family, and especially our grandchildren. And my husband has not divorced me after 6 years of dex and lenalidomide, and he's my star. When I was preparing for my stem cell transplant in November of 2018, my biggest concern was that my daughter was pregnant with our first grandchild. And I didn't want to miss anything, and I wasn't sure what was going to happen when the stem cell was coming. Anyway, she was born on October 2nd. There was a huge snowstorm here in Calgary, and I had to get from Woodbine to the hospital. But I was in the OR with my daughter because her partner faints at the sight of any blood. So, and I was there when the OBGYN delivered her, and I was the first person to hold her when she came out into this world. On July 4th, 2020, our grandson was born, adding to the joy. I gotta get better because I need more energy. In 2020, amid a full-blown pandemic, my sister and her husband moved from Ontario to Calgary. We lived our adult lives in totally different provinces and cities, so this is a joy. We do everything, we celebrate everything, every chance we get. Well, and she shops too, so the guys aren't happy, but you know. In life, right now, I choose not to focus on having myeloma. It's there, and I know it's there, and I know it's gonna come and go, and you know, life has to go on. Instead, I focus on enjoying time with family and friends, traveling, reading, getting back to my outdoor activities. My husband made me sell my motorcycle, but I advocate for myeloma patients whenever I can in municipal, provincial, and sometimes federal arenas, depending on what's going on. And just living. I try and focus on just living. I have a gazebo that I call the cottage because it's as close as I'm gonna get to a vacation. If it didn't blow away yesterday, I may have to get a new cottage. But I'm encouraged by the great strides that are made in research, treatment development, some of which is done right here at our U of C. Doctors Bayless and Dr. Neary, they're rock stars, and their team, myeloma specific. I don't know how they look at these teeny cells and say, okay, we gotta take this part and kill it. And it just blows my mind. They're incredible. And they attract clinical trials. And a lot of people don't realize that if you've been through all the lines, the approved lines of treatment in Alberta, the only thing between you and death is a clinical trial. And that's why they're so important. People sometimes don't realize that this person could die if they don't get on this clinical trial. So that's a big plus. And now with the new cancer center, I can't wait. I hope they're just gonna skyrocket. They've impacted the life expectancy and quality of life for us in a very positive way. I'm encouraged by the number of new drugs that have come down the pipeline and have been approved for myeloma treatment here in Alberta. It takes a long time to get a new drug approved, but more are coming all the time. I'm encouraged by the work done by Myeloma Canada and all of the support groups across Canada in helping patients understand myeloma, providing up-to-date education, keeping them up on the research that's happening, helping spread awareness of myeloma, which is the second most common blood cancer, but nobody knows it until they fall and break their back, or they end up in the hospital with kidney failure. It's incredible. I'm encouraged by companies like Sebia who shine a light on myeloma and work in various ways to help research and treatment development. I'm especially proud of our local myeloma support group, the Southern Alberta Myeloma Patients Society. They're a nonprofit registered charity which fundraises to provide, it's the DEX, financial support to the local myeloma-specific research team. I'm inspired by the number of people I've met at conferences and on Zoom calls who say, oh, I've had myeloma for 15 years. Oh, well, I'm on year 24. It's awesome. when you think back to where we started. I'm inspired by people like all of you who continue to focus on myeloma and continue to help bring a cure to all of us who are living with it. Thank you for allowing me to share my story and for listening to me. And thank you for everything you do in the myeloma world.